Joining us now is Democratic Congressman Jason Crow of Colorado. He's on the Armed Services Committee. Great to have you here, although crickets on Capitol Hill today, right? Both the House and the Senate are out of session, so presumably no negotiating, no votes happening. What message is that sending to families trying to put food on the table?
Well, because Donald Trump and the House Republicans have decided to shut down Congress, and Donald Trump just spent the last week overseas, eating brownies, literally with gold on them, being presented with golden crowns by foreign leaders while Americans suffer. I just came from Washington, where the doors to the United States House of Representatives are actually locked and shut because Mike Johnson shut them about a month ago. It sends the message that they don't care. Right? Just like it sends the message they don't care about hunger in America. Donald Trump is weaponizing hunger. Let's be really clear about that. Right? And let's also be really clear about why he's weaponizing hunger and to what end. The reason we are here right now is because in early July, he pushed through a bill in the middle of the night to deliver some of the biggest tax breaks to the wealthiest Americans and the largest corporations in American history. And he did it on the back of health care for working class Americans and food for working class Americans. That's what this fight is about. And
now you have a number of Americans, thousands, hundreds of thousands, frankly, who are going without paychecks because there are federal employees and we're in the middle of a now 30-plus day government shutdown. Right. We know some House staffers are joining the ranks of people missing paychecks, but the president says the military will still get paid. They won't miss this paycheck. This time, the White House is tapping into the military housing fund from Trump's spending bill, as well as some research and development and Navy ship funds. Axios was first to report on this. Obviously, you want the troops to get paid, but is this sort of workaround the answer?
Well, Donald Trump has also gone to private anonymous donors to try to pay for our troops. And just imagine, I served 3 combat tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. The first part of my life was in uniform and service to this country. And there's a long-standing tradition that we don't have private donors to actually support our national security and our military. Like, imagine the conflicts of interest. Imagine cutting Congress completely out of the appropriations and oversight of that money. That is a deeply, deeply disturbing trend and deeply disturbing plan by Donald Trump, right? But we have to look at all of this, right? We have to pay the troops. We have to make sure that kids aren't going to school hungry. We have to make sure that 30 million Americans aren't losing their health care or seeing their premiums double or triple like we're seeing in Colorado. All of those things are happening or about to happen, and it's because Donald Trump wants to give massive tax breaks to his wealthy friends and donors. It is grotesque what they are trying to do.
What about the taxes that are supposedly coming in from all the tariff revenues that this administration is collecting? Could they be using some of those funds to help pay for people who are now furloughed or the SNAP benefits?
Well, part of the problem with the tariffs is that Donald Trump is largely using tariffs. I'm glad you raised that, because he's actually largely using tariffs to enrich himself and his family. Right? They are using the threat of tariffs to strike golf course deals around the world. They're using the threat of tariffs to put pressure on Brazil because they did something to one of his allies and friends that they didn't like. He's actually now threatening the Colombian president in Colombia with tariffs because the Colombian president tweeted something that he didn't like. Donald Trump is personalizing American power and our economic system for his personal benefit and the enrichment of his family, which, by the way, while Americans suffer and kids go hungry, he's building a $300 million gold-plated ballroom. He's found money for $170 million of new private jets for Kristi Noem, the Homeland Security. He's found money for all sorts of things that are important to him and his family, and he has enriched himself by several $1 billion this year alone through his meme coins, through his digital currency that he's issuing, that foreign leaders and foreign investors are investing in without any oversight whatsoever. That is what's happening in America today.
Let's talk more about oversight, because you were part of this briefing yesterday involved with the House Armed Services Committee that had to do with the boat strikes that we're seeing in the Caribbean and the Pacific. You expressed some frustration coming out of that briefing. What were your top takeaways?
Well, I served 3 combat tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, and I am angry about those 20 years of failed wars and military ventures, like so many millions of Americans are. 3 million combat tours, 7,000 Americans dead, $3 trillion spent and our now 25-year war against terror around the world. And look, terrorism is still spreading, right? So have we not learned anything in those 25 years? Have we not learned that military and bombing is not always the answer? I want to desperately stop the flow of drugs into America. I want to reduce the demand, because we know we have to reduce demand, and we need to reduce supply. But what Donald Trump is doing is spending hundreds of millions of dollars to blow up a couple of speedboats, to kill a couple of drug smugglers.
So did you confirm that that's what was blown up and that that's who was killed?
That's what the military and that's what the administration is saying, right? And they have no plan. We asked them, what is the strategy? What is the end game? How, after 60 years of trying to stop narco trafficking in America, this is going to be different? They couldn't answer it. You know, I've sat through hundreds of tactical briefings as a soldier and as a member of Congress, where generals and admirals come before us and they say, well, we've killed X number of people. We've destroyed X number of vehicles. It was a successful mission. And then we just repeat that year after year after year. Trillions of dollars have been spent doing this. It's madness. What is the strategy and plan to keep our kids safe, to end the flow of drugs in America, and to stop spending exorbitant amounts of taxpayer dollars on failed missions?
Congressman Jason Carr, thank you very much for coming in. Appreciate your time.